there in YouTube land. Rival here. Thanks for stopping by. As you can see, we've got something a little different on the turntable for you this week. I've actually had this knife for several weeks now. I've been carrying it on a very regular basis and using it on a regular basis, so I can definitely give you an opinion that's well informed as far as how this blade performs and how it works and things like that. But this is the G&G Hawk and Surge Panchenko collaboration knife. This is called the Orbit. Now it's produced by Millet Knives, so it would be considered that mid-tech range. I think they retail for they start around $4.25, and then depending on what options you get, whether you order from Gavin or whether you order from Surge, you can get a couple of different options. I think both offer this carbon fiber, but then Gavin offers a titanium flame anodized scaled version, and then Surge offers a patinaed, I think, brass. He does a lot of patinaed work that's pretty awesome. But they both have this very unique setup, so we'll kind of dive into that. And I mean, right off the bat, the thing that turned me on about this is that it's just not your average knife. And I've definitely been suffering from a little bit of flipper frame lock fatigue. S35 VN flipper frame locks. Granted, there's been a lot of really cool ones these past couple of years. Everything's S35 VN. So it's nice to start seeing people change things up. ZT's done a pretty good job of changing things up this year. We Knives and Rayot have done a good, have put forth a good effort in changing up blade steels and things like that. But this kind of goes that extra little way. It's just a very unique overall design. It's got CTS 204P steel, so very nice, durable, analogous to M390 with a crucible steel. It is a flipper, as you saw. I guess you could call it a front flipper. It is more forward than your standard flipper. You can kind of put it in your hand and flip it with your thumb as well. It takes a while to kind of get the hang of this. A couple different ways to open it. But as you saw, what really makes it unique is probably my favorite locking mechanism, and that is the Hawk lock. That's this guy right here. It is engaged with your thumb. It's not like an access lock that goes all the way through. There is a, I don't even know how to describe it. There is a pin inside here, and this actuates a release for that pin that hits the lock here. The detent is actually built into the back side of the scale, and it is definitely not your traditional detent. It's actually a cutout that houses kind of like a rotating switch and a spring that, depending on whether it's forward, you can hear it actuating there, or in the closed position, puts pressure either this way or this way to maintain the knife closed or open. It's actually pretty darn unique and ingenious system. Gavin has some pictures on his Instagram. I'll actually pause for just a second so that you can actually see the actuation system, because it is something that's extremely unique to this particular knife. All right, so as you saw, the detent and the lock setup from the inside with the scales removed, you can see how unique it really is. To give you an idea of size, it's actually a pretty small knife. Here it is against like a ZT450, which I think would be a pretty common and good comparison, and against its slightly bigger brother, the Mud, also made by Millet Knives, also featuring a Hawk lock. We'll talk about that in just a sec. Now, this is about 2.75 inch cutting edge. They call it a 3-inch blade, but I mean, I think if you measured maybe from the tip of the flipper to the tip of the knife, but with the cutout for the sharpening choil and stuff like that, you get about 2.75 inches, which is actually pretty reasonable and pretty good. It's by far the smallest knife I carry, but it's an extremely usable blade. So why don't we just talk about that first? So you can see it is I guess you could call it a cleaver style, but it really is. I mean, it evokes that straight razor style, and with a little bit of a butcher flavor. But it is an extremely utilitarian type knife. It's got a high hollow grind, so it's extremely thin behind the edge. It's got a long edge, so it actually does good at small food prep tasks. Like you're not going to split an apple, but call it a cheese knife. I mean, you can get good slices without actually splitting things because the width on the blade is right around that 1/8 inch mark. A lot of blades lately are that like 0.156 or sometimes even thicker than that, which can really affect cutting. But this is long enough with a high enough, deep enough hollow grind, you really get an excellent cutting edge. And being that M390 steel really just kind of tips it over the top. Now, I know people would complain that you don't really have a pointy point. Yeah, if you're going to be stabbing, but realistically, most of us aren't doing a whole lot of stabbing. What I'm doing is a lot of utility cutting, so it holds in that full 4 fingers. My thumb goes in the forward area, which really ergonomically is great, and then you can get a good steady, maintainable, controllable, or even put it in a pinch grip pull cut, which is very utility style. I mean, you can still get full cuts in any number of ways, but for me, that's one of the things that I'm going to be doing most with something like this utility type blade. And again, it looks a little funky as far as styling. I could understand some people it just not being for them, but ergonomically, I mean, I got a size medium glove. My fingers nestle right in here. If you want a more solid, durable, or if your hands are a bit thicker, you might get 3 fingers and then one right here just underneath. But then your thumb sits nice and forward like this. It is a really comfortable grip for push cutting or for just pretty much any cutting task. And again, that M390 blade, fantastic for it. It comes in at 3.6 ounces, so it's pretty reasonably light. It's not chunky or anything like that. It is a bit thick if we were to look at it against, say, this knife, the 450. It's a bit wider than the 450, but again, it carries like a lightweight, smaller knife. Really with the profile, the only complaint I have overall is just right here where you're going to be pocketing it. It's rather fat in the butt. Got a big butt, but that's okay. I like the butt. She can sit on your pocket, and she sits far enough down where it's not obtrusive or anything like that. You can get a good grip of it, pull it out pretty easily. So nice overall. I also like that it's got the solid press fit blade stops as opposed to like an internal stop pin. More of a preference thing, but I like that overall. There's several different finishes you can get. You can get this with a satin blade. You can get it with a black DLC blade. I use my blade, so that's why I got it in just the tumbled blasted blade finish. And then, as you can see, I've got the carbon fiber, and you can see the Hawk logo milled in very nicely there, as well as the Serge Panchenko logo up here. If you get the tie version, it's the same thing, only it's tie, it's flamed, satin flats, and then it really highlights that logo. You've got the sculpted clip here. The clip does a good job of retention. I've not had any issues with the clip overall. And again, being a smaller profile knife, it rides in shorts that some bigger knives just have a problem in, and it's a lot lighter than, say, knives like this. So, basketball shorts, completely doable to have something like this in a pair of basketball shorts or sweats or whatever you're kind of walking around in. So it's a very handy, quick grab-and-go knife, which I also appreciate greatly. I mentioned a second ago it is a variation of the Hawk lock. Traditionally, a lot of knives have the Hawk lock here, but we've started to see a couple of knives. The Tad Dauntless with the Hawk lock had a lock like this, and most recently the Kershaw, I believe this is the injection. It's the Kershaw 1905, that's what it is. But that has a more forward-facing Hawk lock as well. And it does a really good job of locking the blade. And you can see the action on it. I mean, it fires strong. And the lock, the thing I love the most about the Hawk lock is when you depress the lock, when you disengage the lock, I mean, that blade just falls. And you can hear that sound whipping. I mean, this big-ass cleaver blade cuts through the air. So it's very fantastic to open and close. It's a very good fidget knife. Very fun to carry. Yeah, I mean, and that's just it. It is very fun to carry. It's kicked a lot of other knives out of my pocket. And for a summer that, or even a year for that matter, that's had a lot of fantastic blades, a lot of cool things coming out from ZT, a lot of cool things coming from Riate, a lot of cool things coming from smaller independent makers. I just reviewed that Booz Blades front flipper. Very cool stuff. But this thing has really been dominating my rotation the past few weeks. I kind of have been putting off this video, not intentionally, but just because I enjoy carrying it so much. I just haven't gotten around to carrying much else, doing much else. So I'm glad I finally got time to sit down and share it with you. I think the only thing I didn't go over is the back spacer. Nothing crazy. It does got a nice little set of fine jimping inside there. The only real complaint I got about this knife, again, you know, aesthetics aside, I dig that some people are just going to look at it and say it's not for them. The rounded front flipper, it took a minute to just get used to getting good purchase on, what it feels like to have purchase on it, but you can see I even just did it there. It is slippery. I'd like to say a little bit of jimping would be great, but I don't know if a little bit of jimping would be obtrusive to my finger there. So I think for what it is the best option there. And, you know, after, I'd say after the first week, sometimes you get a new system to get used to. A week's about how long it takes to get a good hold on it. After that first week, it's just no problem. And that hawk lock is in the perfect place for engage and disengagement. So all in all, I really love this knife. It's something completely different, but completely awesome. And it has the backing of, you know, one of, if not my overall favorite makers, Grant and Gavin Hawk. So I love seeing new designs, new flavors from them. You can go onto their website. I believe they're going to be doing a second run. The first run's completely sold out to my knowledge. Or you could check Serge Panchenko's website to get details on ordering through him, depending on which flavor you like the most. But that is the Hawk Panchenko Orbit. Thanks for stopping by. Like and subscribe. Peace.